This is Private First Class Michael Rourke, United States Army Signal Group, transmitting from the mobile high-frequency truck at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. My voice is moving out on 7.400 megahertz amplitude modulation through the big BC610 transmitter in the back of a K-51 van. Civil defense stations with a clean feed can rebroadcast freely. If you hear me on your home set, someone at a local station patch the line. Stay tuned for alerts, road closures, and safe routes. I will keep this going as long as the generator holds and the antenna stays up. About 1 hour ago, coastal spotters in Maine called in German landing craft off Cape Elizabeth. That is not a rumor. The call came on the wire line to our switchboard with a coordinates grid and a request for artillery. Portland Harbor batteries engaged and small craft tried to ram the boats near Peaks Island. Fishermen and wooden trawlers did it first. A corporal from the Harbor Defense Command in Portland gave me his name and gave permission to repeat it so his family knows his voice went out. Corporal James Leary, gun crew number 2 at Battery Steel, reported confirmed hits and confirmed return fire from deck guns on at least 2 enemy submarines. He could see black smoke moving inland from the fuel tanks near South Portland. We have a blackout order from Boston to Cape May. That means no porch lights, no car headlights unless taped, no neon signs, no lit billboards. If you need to drive, tape your headlamps in a small slit and use parking lights. Air raid wardens will knock if they see a bright window. Do not argue with them. Those folks volunteered and they are the reason pilots cannot find you. I'm getting real voices on the field phone lines here. I will read the names so families know the calls got through. From Biddeford, Mrs. Nora Pelletier, a nurse at St. Andre, says the sisters moved the children to the basement and stacked sandbags against the street door. From Kittery, shipfitter First Class Saul Mendel at the Navy Yard says they are flooding dry docks to deny them to the enemy. From Portsmouth, Fire Captain Harold Quinn has men on the tanks, spraying foam on the roofs to stop sparks. These are not rumors. These are the people you live with, working by name and job. Here in New Jersey, the sun is up. Thick haze over the Navesink and Shrewsbury rivers. The wind is coming in off the Atlantic, stiff enough to push the guy wires of our long wire antenna. I can see the blimp from Lakehurst, turning slow circles to the south. A dull silver cigar with a big black number on the side. The air crew is watching for submarines and paratroopers. The blimp commander radioed our tower that he will drop flares only if he sees lifeboats or an oil slick. If you see a flare over the water, do not flock to it. That is the Navy's lane. I am stepping out of the truck for a minute to check the portable mast. I will leave the microphone tied to the carrier. You may hear the generator. It is a 4-cylinder, smells like hot metal and leaded gas, throws a steady growl. We have spare belts and 2 big cans of fuel. Sergeant Howard keeps the Davenports humming. His word, not mine. He is from Newark. Did radio repair before the war at an appliance shop on Springfield Avenue. He showed me how to reseat a hot tube with a rag so you do not brand your palm. Back at the desk. I will take you north first. Boston Harbor Command reports an attack on convoy beacon ships east of Provincetown. 4-engine planes came in low. Black crosses on the wings. Probably Focke-Wulf. 200 condors working long range. Naval gunners got at least one of them. A seaman named Cutter who called from the destroyer Escort on picket duty said he watched a wing come off and the plane break the surface just short of a buoy. He said he could smell raw fuel. He also said he could see figures in dark uniforms in lifeboats, and he did not like that feeling. War is not tidy. If you are listening, Mrs. Cutter of Fall River, your husband told me to say he had his lucky brass penny in his left boot. That is what he said. Left boot. We have an authenticated report of paratroopers on Long Island. The call came from a Suffolk County deputy named Frank Auletta, who was at a roadblock near Riverhead. He said he could see silk canopies in the first light, drifting down near potato fields south of Calverton. The deputies formed a skirmish line with state troopers and a National Guard unit, with old Springfield rifles and a Browning automatic rifle they keep for storms and floods. Shots were fired. He could hear automatic fire with a fast ripping sound, not American. That is likely a German MG-34 or MG-42. If you live on Long Island east of Patchogue, stay off the roads. Get in the cellar. If an air raid warden bangs on your door, listen to him or her. Camp Hero at Montauk is awake. The big 16-inch guns are manned. A captain from the Harbor Defense Regiment told me they are cranking the barbette mounts by the book. Powder bags and shells laid out on the ready racks. Fuses checked twice. Those guns can reach far enough to make any U-boat captain pick a new hobby. Camp Hero also has radar. I'm told the set is watching the sky for anything with a prop. If that dish swings your way, do not worry. It does not cook birds and it does not fry brains. It is a radio wave looking for metal. Someone asked over the wire if this is a drill. It is not. The Office of Civilian Defense has the green sirens running from Portland to Atlantic City. The all clear will be a steady tone. Until then, the rising and falling wail means keep dark, keep low, and keep your family inside. If you have blackout curtains, use them. If you do not, hang a blanket. A little light leaks out of a keyhole, and a bomber 10,000 feet up can see it. The Luftwaffe trained crews to find cities by the glow. Do not give them a candle to steer by. I am getting questions about safe roads out of New York City. There is no general evacuation order for the city. The bridges are pinch points, and that turns cars into targets. The George Washington Bridge can take a beating, yes, but the approaches are open and exposed. Holland Tunnel and Lincoln Tunnel are choke tubes. If you get stuck in there during an air raid, there is no clean way out. If you must move, use local streets to get to family on high ground and stay off the big crossings until police or wardens tell you otherwise. A word to anyone with a boat in a slip from Freeport down to Barnegat. Cut the main power, close the fuel line, double up lines, and pull canvas. A loose mast in a storm is one thing. A loose mast during a raid is a spear in the wind. Harbor police are yelling themselves hoarse. Help them. I promise names and I will keep that up. From the Brooklyn Navy Yard, rigger Leo Caputo says the yard has crews rolling half-finished hulls into covered sheds, welding over doors, chain hoists, singing. A foreman at Building 10 named Miss Sylvia Park says she handed out helmets and marked off bomb shelters with white paint she swiped from the paint locker 2 weeks ago when the rumors started to turn into real. The Iowa-class hull on the pier, she would not give the hull number, has welders crawling it like ants, her words, and she said those men are not leaving. She asked me to tell her mother she is wearing the good scarf under her hard hat. Mrs. Park on Court Street, she is fine. Newark just called in. The airfield is closed to civilian traffic. New York Police Department Harbor Unit moved 2 cutters down the Passaic to support the fireboats. St. Michael's Hospital has blood donors lined up in the lobby. A nurse named Alice Bennett told me the line runs out the door under the awning, and nobody is complaining. She asked for a shout to a volunteer named Emilio, who came in with a box of ham sandwiches and a thermos of coffee that was strong enough to scrub rust. Emilio, the nurses say thank you. I am hearing from the South as well. Philadelphia has blackout. The SS United States is not in service yet, so no one worry about that big liner. The Navy Yard on League Island is buttoned up, and anti-aircraft crews have their 90mm guns uncovered. The searchlight batteries are drilling arcs on the river. If you see a searchlight fan across your block, do not stop and wave at it. It is not a parade. We got a burst of static and then a voice that sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. It was a volunteer radio man crouched behind a stone wall near Old Orchard Beach. He gave his name as Pete Driscoll. Said he runs a bait shop in peacetime and a set of patched tubes and a home-wound coil in wartime. He said he watched gray-painted boats come straight at the sand and lower metal ramps. He could see boots and helmets through the spray. He said one boat hung up and a wave spun it sideways. He said a truck in the second wave rolled off too fast and went nose down. He said he could see the driver's hands in the windshield and then nothing. That is a hard picture. I am repeating it because I want the folks who keep asking if this is staged to stop saying that. If you are in Maine, New Hampshire, or the North Shore of Massachusetts, pull road signs if the sheriff asks. Town crews can loosen bolts. Make German drivers work for every turn. That is a civil defense directive for a reason. And if a soldier asks for your truck, hand him the keys and say Godspeed. He will give you a paper chit. Keep it. You will be paid back when we settle this account. I will talk about guns for the folks asking what those sounds are. The slow, heavy cracking you hear in the distance is probably our coast artillery, 12-inch and 16-inch guns, sending steel out to sea. The fast, flat clatter close by is likely a Browning M1919 on a tripod spitting. 306 by 51 rounds, or a water-cooled older gun doing the same job. If you hear a harsh tearing that climbs faster than ours, that is likely German MG-34 fire. If you hear a rising whistle and then a thud, that is mortar. Do not go to the window. I hate saying that, but folks do it. It is not a circus. I'm going to step out and gather 2 short field reports. Sergeant Howard will keep the carrier live and the frequency steady. If we lose lock, we will retune, and I will call the call sign. I will be back in 5 minutes. I am back with mud on my boots and a book full of notes. Report 1. Fort Hancock on Sandy Hook is manned. Phone lines solid. Battery Gunnison Ball has its 6-inch guns uncovered and ready. And the mine casemate crew is watching the loop currents that tell them if a big hull crosses the channel. A corporal named Roscoe Dean from Highlands put his ear to my microphone and said hello to his mother in Red Bank. He said he promises to wear his scarf today. Report 2. The New Jersey State Police Post in Holmdel has roadblocks at U.S. Route 35 and U.S. Route 36, and they have boys with shotguns and a borrowed Browning automatic rifle from the guard. The sheriff says anyone with a steel helmet and a rifle stack who says he is American first and asks for your trousers second is probably not our guy. Ask for the password. If you do not know it, keep your hands where the trooper can see them and let him sort it. We have confirmed sabotage in Bayonne. One of the big oil tanks at Constable Hook lit off just after dawn. Fireboats are on it. A longshoreman named Hank O'Rourke, no relation to me, said he saw a man climb the fence in a dark coat with shiny boots and a cap and vanish into the maze. Then the flame came. Security will find him if the fire does not. If you work the docks, pair up. 2 men to a watch, no loners. I am told to announce that the New York City subway is running limited service underground only. Elevated lines are shut during alerts. The stations are shelters. If you are in a station and the siren sounds, step back from the platform edge, sit on the floor, hands on your head until an MTA constable says clear. Keep the kids close. If you have bottled water in your bag, share. You will make a friend for life in a bad hour by passing a paper cup. I want to put a voice from Maine straight onto this line. I have Sergeant Ruth Hale, U.S. Army Nurse Corps, calling on a field line from a school gym in Saco that is now a triage center. Sergeant, you are live. I'm Sergeant Ruth Hale. We have 32 cots. We have enough morphine for today. We are boiling instruments on a camp stove and using carboys of water from the bottling plant. A volunteer named Mrs. Angeline Fournier is holding hands with the scared ones. If you are listening and you have clean sheets, bring them to St. Joseph's School in Saco. If you have blood type O, come in and we will check you. Bring a sandwich if you can. That is all. Thank you, Sergeant Hale. If anyone knows her family in Portland, let them know her voice went out to the whole coast. To the fishermen from Gloucester and New Bedford running your trawlers as picket boats, the Navy thanks you on the radio already, and I will say it again. If you see an oil slick and a periscope, call it in and drop what you have. Some of you have depth charges now. Some of you have only cans full of scrap. Drop them anyway. A submarine captain does not like noise and holes. Force him down and call the cutters. There is a rumor that Washington has been evacuated. That is not true. The Capitol Police say staff moved to secure rooms and the White House went to its protocol spots. That is different from running away. The city is under the same blackout order we are. Government still works. Do not repeat fear stories that move faster than the truth. New message from Long Island. Our National Guard, the 27th Division, has elements on the move east down Sunrise Highway with tank destroyer cars and half-tracks borrowed from a training yard. A corporal named Danny O'Neill from Queens says his half-track rattles and smells like hot grease, and he loves it that way. He asked me to say to his girl in Astoria that he still has the bracelet she gave him in his pocket. Miss Louise Rallis. If you hear this, he said the bracelet has your initials scratched with a nail and he keeps rubbing the edge when he gets jumpy. I'm going to talk you through what I'm seeing out the door right now. A column of New Jersey guard trucks just rolled past the motor pool, canvas backs, with men sitting on benches and helmets, rifles between their knees. The men look young and old at once, and that is not poetry. That is just what war does to faces by breakfast. A priest on a bicycle is riding beside the trucks, and he is saying blessings at stop signs, one quick hand to a helmet at a time. A woman in a house dress stood on the curb and held up a brown bag. A kid leaned out, and she tossed apples in. The driver grinned and ground the gears. That is the picture. We have to speak about sabotage and spies because that is part of this. The Federal Bureau sent over a notice with a list of common tricks. If a man in a dark coat and foreign accent asks you how to get to a rail yard, do not draw him a map. If somebody asks where the nearest fuel tank is, tell a cop. If you see someone airing out a suitcase on a bridge, that is not laundry. Call the police. And if you are 3 beers in and someone at the bar starts bragging about where the anti-aircraft guns are, shut him down or walk away. Loose mouths feed enemy maps. A troop of Boy Scouts from Asbury Park just came by the gate with bundles of newspapers and tape, asking to paper windows at the hospital. The guard let them through with a smile, and I gave them 2 extra rolls from our supply. The scoutmaster said the boys had their mess kits and handkerchiefs and would work until they drooped. I told them to send them back for cocoa when they finish. If anyone wants to feed those kids cookies, the hospital doors will be open. We are getting word that German long-range planes crossed into the skies over Rhode Island and turned toward Providence. Anti-aircraft on the rooftops put up bursts. A shoe factory in Pawtucket reported broken windows and 2 small fires. Firefighters moved in fast. A radio man named Freddie Costa, who plays clarinet at the parish hall on Fridays, says his mother is fine and the dog is under the bed, and he told me to tell his sister to stop crying. Freddie, I said it. If you live near rail lines, expect troop trains. Keep off the tracks. The engineers run long and heavy and cannot stop for a boy on a dare or a fool with a camera. This is not a postcard day. This is a work day. I'm taking a request from a teacher in Independence, New Jersey. She has 30 students in a cinder block hallway. She asked for a story she can read that is not about explosions. Teacher, here is what you say. We are in a fort we built together. The walls are strong because we made them strong. Outside, grown-ups are fixing broken things. Inside, our job is to be kind and quiet and smart. We will take turns talking. We will play a game where we say the names of animals in alphabetical order. We will drink water and eat crackers. We will close our eyes and name the rooms we like at home. We will clap once when we hear a siren stop. We will clap twice when we hear a grown-up laugh in the hallway. Read that twice. Read it slow. The kids will look at you instead of the door. I am told to remind everyone that if you own a shortwave set tuned to 7.400 megahertz for this feed, and to 9.650 megahertz for the Navy broadcasts, you will hear call signs you do not recognize. That is all right. Those are ships. They speak their own language. If you catch a number group and do not understand it, that is fine. It is not meant for you. Now for Washington news. The Army Chief of Staff authorized the release of reserve units in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The governor of New York activated the State Guard for bridge security and power plants. The governor of Massachusetts put the State Guard on the Boston Edison stations. That keeps your lights off when they must be off and on when they must be on, and it keeps saboteurs from walking in like they own the place. The Baltimore waterfront called in a sighting of a periscope in the outer harbor. Patrol boats went to work and dropped cans off the stern. The crew chief said he felt the thump run through the planks. An oil stain rose, and the men cheered and then shut up fast because cheering on deck draws eyes. Those men have learned that trick this year. A captain from the 26th Yankee Division out of Massachusetts phoned a short sit rep. He said his boys are on trucks headed north on U.S. Route 1 with winter coats in their packs and old envy in their eyes for those fancy half-tracks the New York boys got. He laughed once and then went quiet and said he would call again when he got a line. I could hear the horn and the engine and a man singing off key. He hung up because a sergeant barked his name. I hope he calls again. A lot of you keep asking where the Navy is. The Navy is at sea. The battleships do not tie up during a raid. The destroyers do not sit in their cribs. You cannot always see the fleet. That is part of the job. If you cannot see it, good. That means someone else cannot see it either. New York City, listen close. There was a brush with paratroopers near Belmont Park. A groundskeeper named Mr. Antonio Russo says he heard engines. Then silk appeared in the air, and men landed hard in the infield. He saw one catch his chute on a rail and hang there, kicking. Police from Queens and Nassau hit the ground running with guard support. Shots were fired. The bodies are under tarps now. If you live within earshot of the track, stay inside while the police sweep sheds and stables. If you own a horse, keep him in the stall and talk to him the way you do during thunder. Animals can feel your voice settle. To folks writing notes and tying them to the hands of messengers and boys on bicycles, I am reading what I can. A letter came from Mrs. Lorraine Carter of Red Hook. She says she has a baby 8 months old and a pot of chicken soup on the back burner and a basement with blankets, and she will open her door to any nurse or warden who needs a cup. Bless you, Mrs. Carter. That is how a city stays a city. I have a sailor in the truck now. He has a bandage on his scalp and a look like a man who has been awake 3 nights. He is Seaman Second Class Walter Wally Kim, a radio man from a destroyer escort that ran hard out of New London before dawn. He is going to speak 2 minutes. Wally, lean in. This is Wally Kim. We ran south by Block Island and picked up a ping. The sonar man said it was a good hard return. We dropped the full pattern. We saw oil and wood and what might have been a cap. The captain said, hold celebration. We turned and laid a second pattern and then took a snap from a deck gun that put splinters in my scalp. I am standing here and the ship is still at sea. I want my ma in Flushing to know I'm all right. Ma, it looks worse than it is. I will write when I get a rack. That is all. Thank you, Wally. His cap is hanging from the microphone stand and it smells like salt and cordite. He just smiled at that and said sorry for the language. We have soap and water in the corner, sailor. Go clean up. Reports from Maine say German troops pushed inland 2 miles along U.S. Route 1, then stalled when a bridge went up under them near Scarborough Marsh. That sounds like an engineer squad did what the manual says. A grocery truck was parked crosswise behind the wreckage, and the driver left the keys and ran because troops told him to. His name is Mr. Cal Aubin, and he wants his wife to know the truck is gone, but he did what he had to. Mrs. Aubin, that was the right call. Boston's mayor recorded a short message for me to read. He says public schools are closed and will be used for shelters. He says if you have ration books, bring them. If you lost them, bring yourself, and we will sort it later. He says he has the firemen checking hydrants and the police checking locks, and he will be here until the lights come back to normal. I will give you a short primer on what the ground war might look like if German units try to push past the beaches. We have National Guard and regular Army with M1 Garand rifles, Springfield 303 bolt guns in some racks, Browning automatic rifles in the squads, and light and heavy machine guns. Anti-tank teams carry shaped charges, and there are boys training on the new bazooka launcher to punch holes in armor. We have tank destroyer battalions with guns on half-tracks and some early Shermans. The Germans bring machine guns that spit faster than ours, light mortars, and good field guns. They move quick when they can. The way to stop them is to smash bridges, slice their fuel lines, take their map readers away from road signs, and make every hedgerow a question mark. You will see our boys do that. When you see them, hand them water, and do not crowd them. I'm going to say something hard. Some of you will face a knock on the door from men who speak English with an accent and have guns. If that happens before our boys reach your street, do not be a hero in your living room. Step back, keep your family quiet. Watch faces, remember details. When our boys come through, tell the first sergeant everything you saw and heard. Names, insignia, a scar, a ring, a habit. That is how we hunt them on the next block. We do not need bar stories. We need facts from people who were brave enough to stay alive in a room full of enemies. I am looking at a wall map with pushpins and red grease pencil lines. The line from Bar Harbor to Portsmouth is not straight, and that is normal. War does not walk in a parade route. It pools and drains. Right now it looks like a pool down east, and a thin finger trying to reach west along the coast road. Inland towns are quiet and scared and building roadblocks with dump trucks and hay wagons. If you are one of those towns, send one clear runner to the county seat and save the phone lines for emergencies. We have a confirmation from the Coast Guard. A German submarine tried to put men ashore near Seagirt last night and got hung up in the sandbar. A light and a siren made them panic, and they backed into the bar again. The Coast Guard cutter came down on them with lights out, and the men in the rubber boat dropped paddles. Nobody sings about that kind of fight. It is stupid and wet and hurts your knees and elbows, but it is a win. From Connecticut, Bridgeport's Remington plant says production is up and running. Machines are oiled. Foremen are sleeping on benches. A woman named Miss Dorothy Angel says the line crew started singing old church songs to keep count of the pieces. She says if the roof shakes, they will keep the belts running. I asked if that was safe, and she said it was safer than what boys on the beach are facing. So the belts will hum. All right. I am being told by the colonel that I can take a jeep and a driver to the Highlands overlook to put eyes on the mouth of the bay. We will drag a field wire up there and try to hold a feed so you hear the wind and the boats as they are. If the line pops, I will call you back in. I am taking Corporal Franz with me. He was a lineman in Union before the war and climbs poles like a squirrel. He is smiling at that. We will keep talking as we move. The microphone will rattle. That is the road. We are in the Jeep. It is a Willys with the canvas off. The motor sounds healthy. Corporal Franz has the spool of wire in his lap and a handset around his neck. We are rolling past small houses with taped windows. A woman in curlers held up a thermos, and a man in a bathrobe held up a sign that said, "God keep you." The sign was made from a shirt box lid. I waved too fast and almost dropped the microphone. The corporal snorted. He says I am all elbows. Passing the Highlands water tower now. The hill is steep. The engine is working. I can see the bay and the strip of sand that makes Sandy Hook. The water looks like dull tin. There are dots moving where the channel goes out. The Coast Guard station has a flag limp on the pole. A gull just slid sideways in the wind and corrected. I am describing everything I can, so you know I am not in a bunker reading a script. We pulled off by the overlook. Corporal Franz is climbing the pole with a belt and spikes. He has the wire over his shoulder. He is quick. He clips the line, scrapes the metal, and I hear a click in my headset, and then the wind comes into the truck line. That means you can hear this hill now, not just the motor pool. Good work, Corporal. He grins and starts wrapping the slack. There is smoke on the horizon east-northeast. It is a thin smear, not a tower. Could be a ship hurt. Could be a ship burning off fuel. There is a cutter moving south with a bow wave crisp as a blade. I can see a small freighter at anchor and a tug nosing it. The tug looks stubborn and brave. That is what tugs are. That is not flowery. That is just true. A man just stepped up behind us with a camera. He said he is with a Newark paper. He asked for a quote, and I said, "Write that the boys are out, and the folks are steady, and the wind is cold, and the coffee at the base is terrible." He laughed and said that will make print. He asked if the Army's censors will cut it. I said they can cut the coffee line, but the rest stays. He snapped a picture of the corporal on the pole and trotted back to his car with the tripod over his shoulder. We have a message from New Haven. Yale opened its library basement as a shelter, and faculty are handing out blankets. A professor named Dr. Aaron Blumberg says his students are volunteering at the hospital, and he wrote the names because he does not want them to be a blur in the next day's papers. He listed them. I will read them on the next hour when I have air. Names matter. The wire is holding. I am watching a pair of Navy planes low over the water. They look like wildcats, stubby wings, dark paint, white star. They are curving east. I can see flashes farther out like a storm with no thunder. That is gunnery. The coast artillery must be practicing arcs or maybe putting steel into a target I cannot see. The sound is late. It crawls in after the flash, a thud in the air more than in the ground. The corporal says you can feel it in your teeth if you stop talking. I am not stopping. We have to talk about the West. The Army got a cable that Japanese submarines moved in closer to the Oregon coast last night and fired a few shells at a logging town, then ran. The War Department says the Pacific states are on alert. That is all I have. My line is the East today. If you have family out there, tell them to keep their porch lights off and their radios on. A Jersey City patrolman named Captain Frank Russo, same man who called earlier about Belmont Park, got the line to me out here and said his sister is on a trolley with her kids and a sack of potatoes headed to an aunt's in Bayonne. He asked me to tell her to get off the trolley and walk the last 8 blocks because the police are clearing a section for fireboats. Sister Russo, get off the trolley when you pass the bakery with the big copper kettle in the window. Walk west 2 blocks, then south 6. He said you will know the stoop by the cracked white paint and the dead geranium. That is a very Jersey set of directions, and I think it will get you there. A mother from Rockaway phoned the base. She asked if her son, Private Eddie Marin, posted with a guard unit near Fort Tilden, can have a message. Yes, he can. Eddie, your mother says she put your dog tags on a nail by the kitchen door the night you forgot them, and she will not tell anyone, but she will hand them to the sergeant with a smile when he stops by. She says she made a pot of beans and she will keep a plate warm. We have weather. The Weather Bureau says a front is moving in from the west with low cloud and a chance of freezing rain tonight in Maine and New Hampshire. That will slow planes and men. It will make roads slick. If you must drive, go slow. Ice at night is mean and quiet. Put sand in a sack in your trunk if you have it. I know some of you do not have trunks. Put the sand in a bucket and tie it to the running board. I am getting a scratchy voice on the handset from a boy at a lighthouse. He will not say which, and that is smart. He says he can see strange flashes far out, not like lightning, more regular. He says he counted to 6 between them, then 5, then 7. That could be guns on 2 ships feeling for each other. That is how it sounds at distance. He says the gulls are sitting on the lee side of the tower and not moving much. He asked if he should douse the lamp even though it is day. I said yes. He said okay and hung up. He sounded 15 and 70 at the same time. That is how war ages a voice by lunch. We are rolling back down the hill now. The corporal coiled the wire and tied it with a scrap of shoelace and slid into the jeep with a sigh. He says the phone pole felt like a cold fish. He means it was slick. Do not write me letters about that phrase. It is a phrase. Even on a day like this, men speak the way they always speak. It keeps them sane. Back at the truck. The generator is steady. Sergeant Howard has a cup of something that wants to be coffee when it grows up. He is shaking his head and saying it tastes like burnt rope, and he is still drinking it. We have a stack of message pads now. I will go fast. Maine militia and guard units report the German columns near Saco tried to push with light armored cars, and 2 of them are smoking by a stone wall because some farmer's boy with a borrowed field gun put 2 rounds into their engines. The boy's name is not given. He said, "Tell Ma I kept my head and did not waste shells." I just told her. Ma, he is calm, and he has a friend with him who knows how to read a range table. New York City reports a fire at an oil depot in Greenpoint contained. A foreman named Benny G is not giving his last name because he owes his bookie, his words, not mine. He says he sent the youngest boys home and kept the old bulls on the hose and the pump. He says the old bulls curse loud and move quicker than you would think. He says if his mama hears him, she will wash his mouth, and that will be a welcome change. Philadelphia reports an inbound convoy on the Delaware with tugs ready. The big cranes look like steel trees with their arms out. Men with red flags are posted at every crossing, and a girl in a blue coat is handing out rags to tie over noses because the smell is strong. She says it is better than the other smell. She did not say what the other smell is. She does not need to. If you lived near the river last spring, you know. Boston South Station says a train of medical staff is assembling, doctors and nurses and orderlies, and a line of civilians with rolled blankets. A policeman with a white stick is keeping a pathway clear and barking at anyone with a suitcase who looks like he wants to talk about the news. He is doing that officer thing where he looks stern and then calls a kid buddy when the kid stares at his shoes. I'm going to read the names from Dr. Bloomberg's list now. Students volunteering at the New Haven Hospital. Miss Catherine Doyle, Mr. Samuel Pierce, Miss Ruth Weinberg, Mr. Luis Ortega, Miss Margaret Daly, Mr. Thomas Childs, Miss Ada Eng. He asked me to say their parents can call the dean if they want to hear a voice. He said the dean will sit by the phone all day and drink bad coffee and listen. We have word that Fort Adams in Newport has the guns manned and the old bricks humming with boots. The caretaker, who usually gives tours, is handing out tin cups of soup. He says the soup is thin and the day is long, and he will figure it out with bread when it arrives. He asked that the boy with freckles who ran the bakery truck last week please swing by with whatever fell off the back today. That was his joke. I laughed because it is nice to hear a joke. Radio from the air. A P-40. Warhawk pilot out of Mitchell Field called a quick one. He said he chased a twin-engine plane with a black cross off Fire Island and watched it drop smoke and turn toward the sea. He called it in and turned to cover his wingman. He said his wingman is a kid from Ohio who says "sir" too much and who can fly like a swallow. He said that on the radio to me and then cut because he had to work. Good hunting, boys. A grandmother from Dorchester phoned to say she has a cellar with a coal bin and 2 chairs and a crucifix, and she will let the lady with the stroller on the corner come down if the siren wails again. She said the lady's name is Mrs. Velez, and she always pays a nickel for bread. She said into the mouthpiece, "Come down if you hear the noise, dear. My name is May. If you are Mrs. Velez, you heard that. Go down if it sounds." We have to speak about the worst news coming in from the first beaches. There are dead. The names will go through the proper lines, and the chaplains will do their solemn work. I will not read names of the dead here without permission from the army and the family. I will say that the men who fell this morning did not fall alone, and the men who carried them back did not look away. That matters. Power update. Con Edison says Manhattan is in controlled blackout on the east side and partial power on the west for hospitals and water pumps. If your block is dark and the next block is bright, do not call to complain. That light is feeding a pump somewhere your throat will miss if it stops. I'm going to spend a few minutes taking calls and reading short notes. Then I will sign off for a minute to swap tubes and check connections. After that, I will come back with any movement from Maine and Long Island. Call 1. Mr. Joe Kowalski, Hoboken Shipyard, says he has a crew welding steel plates over schoolhouse basement windows. He wants people to stop asking if it is prison. He says it is a shield. He says he has a daughter in 5th grade, and he wants that window to laugh at shrapnel. That is how he said it. I kept that line in because he earned it. Call 2. Miss Beverly Chan, librarian in Chinatown, says the branch is open for shelter and quiet games. She says she found a box of old checkers and a deck of cards missing 2 queens. She says she is teaching little ones to whisper in 2 languages, and they are good at it. She says their grandmothers are better. She laughs softly. I liked that sound. Call 3. Father Miguel Alvarez from a church in the South Bronx says he is moving the pews to the sides and laying blankets. He says he needs candles, not for light, for calm. If you have a bag of candles and live near there, ring the bell on the rectory and leave the bag if no one answers. He says the door will be unlocked. All right, the set needs a quick service. Do not go far. Keep your dial here. We are not done, not by a long mile. I am back. We swapped the hot tube out of the modulator and cleaned 2 contacts. The signal should be cleaner. Sergeant Howard says the carrier looks solid on the meter. He also says that if I keep talking at this pace, I will need to sit down. I am sitting. The stool is cold. I am fine. Fresh reports. Main line first. The German push tried to cut inland toward Gorham and hit a blown culvert, and a barricade made of a school bus, 2 farm trucks, and a row of hay bales soaked in diesel. The guard lit the bales, and the smoke made a wall. The German advance stalled and then slid back to the coast road. I have a trooper on the line saying he could smell it in his coat, and he does not mind. If diesel stink keeps bullets out of his boys, he will wash the coat next week. Long Island next. State police just flagged a convoy near Calverton Airfield, moving west. Headlights blacked out. Not ours. The description is 2 half-track carriers painted gray with canvas tops and a 3rd truck with a box body. The guard dropped trees across Middle Country Road by Coram and set a spring gun flare. The first half-track hit the logs, slewed left, and bogged. The second tried to push around and caught 2 rounds from a Browning automatic rifle set back behind a rock wall. A deputy named Louis Bender is on the wire saying he watched the whole thing from a hayloft while gripping a pitchfork because his rifle jammed after 3 shots. He said his hands shook when it was quiet. He is honest on the phone, and I respect that. He stayed. He counted. He got the plate number stenciled on the truck body for the report. Boston Harbor Command reports a cluster of bombs dropped short into the water off Castle Island. The splash lifted a wall of gray and left oil streaks on the tide. South Boston crews set lookouts on roofs with buckets and sand. Fire stations are on a wartime watch, men sleeping in boots. A trolley conductor named Miss Maureen Keene asked me to say Route 9 is suspended and the car barns have their doors chained to keep light from spilling. She said she will sit in the dark cab and hum to keep calm, and she will start the route again when told. Providence took a real hit. A string of bombs fell along Allen's Avenue near the tank farms. One tank lit and vented flame. Fire department went in with foam and big lines. A stevedore named Jack Red McCaffrey dragged a man away from a valve with his coat on fire and came back for the wrench. That is the grit you hear about when the news runs out of ink. Rhode Island Hospital called for O-type blood and got a queue down the sidewalk. A sister from St. Joseph's wrote phone numbers on a chalkboard at the door so families could call each other from the payphones in the lobby. On the Maine front, engineers are cracking sluice gates on the Saco River to flood low ground near the approaches. This will turn fields into slick pans that swallow boots and wheels. Homeowners along the banks move furniture upstairs. A farmer named Mrs. Edith Larrabee is on the hand-crank phone with the county seat telling neighbors which lanes flood first. She knows because her father kept a little black notebook of spring thaws and she is reading from it. She says park the truck on the rise behind the grange, not in the barn. She is right about that. A barn floor becomes a skating rink for a rolling axle when the water sneaks in. I'm getting a tight, low voice from a lineman in Biddeford named Marcel. He says he killed the power to 2 blocks when a line burned down and landed on a stoop. He then tied 3 spans together with a hand splice to keep a hospital transformer fed. He wants his wife to know he will be late and not to worry about stew. He says put the pot in the icebox. I wrote his name on a card and pinned it to the board so I can say it again if the line dies and comes back. New York City update. Queens Boulevard is being held at checkpoints by National Guard with State Guard auxiliaries. Password changes on the hour. If you try to help at a barricade and a corporal snaps at you, do not take it personally. He is matching faces to words, and he cannot do that if a crowd presses the sawhorses. A bakery in Jackson Heights is giving day-old bread to wardens. The owner, Mr. Patel, asked me to say it is free, and he will not take coins from a man in a helmet. We have a call from the Coast Guard station at Rockaway. A small patrol boat ran at speed through a slick of raw fuel. The coxswain says he tastes it in his mouth. He has 2 men on deck with boat hooks pulling floating debris aside because the intake will clog if he is careless. He asked me to tell his daughter Nina that he can see the roller coaster and it looks fine from the water. Nina, he said that into the microphone with a smile you could hear. Our own compound just took a slate of alerts. The siren on the pole pitched high, then dipped. We went dark in the van, canvas flaps tied down, lamps off. I am reading from a glow panel that looks like a weak moon. The modulator tube is hot but not screaming. Sergeant Howard is rolling his shoulders and telling me to keep it tight. If I vanish, it is because a wave peak swamped the carrier. I will retune and come back. Connecticut line. A freight bridge on the Housatonic near Stratford is gone. The section dropped after a shaped charge took the web out of a girder. Railroad men did the smart thing and ran a string of empty coal hoppers onto the bridge first when they thought something was wrong. Those hoppers took the fall. The main line is safe for now, and the saboteur did not get the prize he wanted. A watchman named Peter Novak saw a bicycle leaning in shadow under a bush. Police have the bike. They will dust it when the day eases. If your boy is missing a bicycle and came home with damp shoes and a weak story, call the state police. Let them sort good kids from bad visitors. Navy reports a duel with a submarine outside the Ambrose Channel buoys. Depth charges went in patterns from 2 destroyers and a cutter. Oil came up, with chips of cork and wood. A hat surfaced, dark wool with an eagle badge. The destroyer took it aboard in a net, and a bosun hung it on a nail beside the bridge door. I'm told the crew is quiet about it. They prefer numbers, not trophies. They marked the dead reckoning with grease pencil and moved on. Word from Camp Edwards on Cape Cod. Anti-aircraft crews have 40mm Bofors guns set in pits facing north and east. The gunners ran drills all autumn, and it shows. A sergeant named Shorty Valenti says his team can swap a hot barrel blindfolded. He says they will not try that today. He also says his sister owes him $5 from last Christmas, and if he lives through this, he is collecting. That is the kind of thing a man says when he squares his world in a storm. I am leaving it in. I have a municipal doctor from Portland on the line, Dr. Irene Kovac. She is speaking quiet so as not to spook the room she is in. We moved the infants from the maternity ward to the laundry basement. We labeled ankles with fountain pen names and birth hours. We set up a hand pump for clean water and boiled nipples on a camp stove. 2 grandmothers are sitting by the baskets and singing old hymns. If you have powdered milk and live 3 blocks west of the hospital, hang a white towel and a warden will come for it. Do not bring it yourself. Stay put. That is her message. It is plain, and it is gold. Rhode Island line again. A little tug named Providence Belle shoved a burning barge away from a pier and walked it into the middle of the channel while fireboats worked the sides. The skipper is a woman in her 50s named Captain Dora Collins. She took the wheel when her husband fell sick 2 years back and never gave it up. She says the helm feels natural. She just put her shoulder into the job and the harbor breathed easier. New Jersey. The Pulaski Skyway is closed to civilian traffic and posted with guardsmen at each end. If you are tempted to sneak a car through because you know a trick lane, drop the idea. A jeep will stop you, and a corporal will send you home on foot. Bridges draw eyes from pilots. Keep away from the crown of steel when the sky moans. I'm going to read short family messages now because the board is full and the clerks are waving at me. Mrs. Bridget Hanrahan to Private Dennis Hanrahan, posted at Fort Tilden. Your boots are oiled. Your sister Annie baked soda bread and set the loaf by the kitchen clock. Come home whole when they say you can. Mr. Julius Abramson to his wife Lila in Brighton Beach. The pharmacy will open at noon for 2 hours. I will fill prescriptions and give out iodine and bandages. Bring the ration book and the little blue lamp if you need to see the label. I love you. Tell Max to feed the cat. We just got a jamming attempt on 7.400 megahertz. A buzzing carrier rode up under us and tried to wash the voice out. We shifted kilocycles 2 down, reset the net, and now we are clear. If you had a flutter in the speaker, that was not your set. That was a foreign key thumping our door. We locked it. If they find us again, we will slide again. This is a big band, plenty of quiet water. A volunteer from Somerville named Ramon sent a note that he closed the gas main at a bakery after smelling a leak. He then lit a candle 2 blocks away to boil water. He wrote one line at the bottom. I blew out the candle before moving it. Ramon, you saved your block. Write that on a card and pin it next to the window so you remember you did a good thing on a hard day. Long Island again. A line cook at a diner in Patchogue named Miss Eliza Perez just fed 2 squads of guardsmen eggs and coffee and would not take their money. She wrote on a napkin, "Pay me with a story when this is over." One of the boys wrote back, "We will bring you a map riddled with pencil marks and circles." The cook pinned the napkin by the clock. Small trades keep the shape of a town when the big trades roar. Maine coastal batteries at Fort Williams put a ranging round near a ship flying a red cross on the mast that wandered into the lane without calling. The round splashed wide on purpose. The captain got the hint and moved. Our gunners are careful. War does not erase rules. It tests them and then they matter more. I'm stepping out to help the sergeant tighten a belt on the generator. You will hear a low whine for a second, then the tone will settle. Hold your dial. Back on. The belt was warming and stretching. We moved it 1 notch, spindles snug, flywheel clean. Sergeant Howard's hands are black to the wrist, and he looked proud seeing the needle steady. He muttered something rude about imported rubber and then grinned. He is a good man to have at your elbow. Pennsylvania checked in. Philadelphia rail yards are marshaling hospital cars painted white with red crosses. A surgeon named Dr. Leo Feen asked for extra blankets and got them by the cart from a dry cleaner who opened his store and said, "Take what you need." A Red Cross captain asked for volunteers to fold and label. A troop of Girl Scouts and a synagogue youth group sat side by side and built piles. That is the picture, and it is worth saying out loud. A farmer near Exeter, New Hampshire, did a hard thing that spared lives. He caged his dogs in the barn because they barked at every airplane and spooked the children. He hates the sound of the cages. He did it anyway. He wrote me a short note and asked if he is a coward. No. He is a grown man thinking 3 moves ahead. The dogs will run again when the sky quiets. Now a grim report from Portland. A school bus pressed into service as an ambulance took a fragment through the windshield on Congress Street. The driver lost control and kissed the curb. The bus did not roll. A Boy Scout from Troop 11 named Jimmy Park climbed through the back and opened the side door with a boot heel. He then waved a fire truck in and kept kids from crowding. Jimmy's mother. He asked me to say he did not cry until he sat on the stoop after. He has a badge on his shirt that looks too old for him. Let him keep it. Coast Guard down the Jersey Shore reports a body of a man in dark wool washed up near Manasquan Inlet with papers in a plastic sleeve. The papers are not English. The sheriff has the sleeve. He called the Federal Bureau, and a car is on the way. The deputy on the line said the man's hands were soft and clean. That tells a story a long way from the water. Desk hands go to sea when there are not enough boats. The sea pays all the same. We received a plea from a hospital in New London. They are short of ether and gauze. A pharmacist named Mrs. Ruth Walters says she has a locked cabinet with 3 tins and a ledger. She wants permission to break it and deliver to the Navy Yard. Permission granted by the city doctor on the line. She is taking a porter with her for the walk. If you see a small woman with a big key ring and a determined jaw, clear the sidewalk. Back north. The bridge at Sakarapa is down. The engineer in charge signed the paper and pulled the plunger after the last truck cleared. He said he did not want to, then did. The charges were set last month and checked each week. Men walked the steel at midnight and again at dawn. They did not want to lose that span. The river does not care about wants. It carries timbers and foam and circles back to the sea. That gap will cost the enemy an hour that becomes a day. A call from the Boston College radio room says student operators are standing shifts on hand keys, keeping traffic clean between civil defense posts. One boy, Michael Tierney, says his father is a streetcar man, and he learned to listen for rhythm when he was little. He hears stress in the dits and dahs now, and he knows which stations need a break. He routes the heavy ones to the rooms with more coffee. He is 19 and calm on the wire. I want to put a name out that matters. Fire Lieutenant Salvatore. Sal Marino, Ladder Company 8, Brooklyn. He fell through a roof at a warehouse fire that started when a tracer lit a stack of crates. His crew pulled him out with a hook and 3 belts. He waved them off and signed a chalkboard with the word OK for his wife because he lost his voice yelling. Mrs. Marino, if your neighbor told you he is gone, your neighbor is wrong. He is tired and he is not done. We have an ugly rumor spreading that Boston Harbor Islands fell to a landing party. Not true. Fort Warren reports all clear on the guns. A patrol grabbed 2 men in odd work coats in the powder magazine passage. The men could not name the captain of the guard and did not know which way was west. They are in a cell under a light. If they are fools, they will get a lecture. If they are more than fools, they will get a ride in a car with no handles on the inside. Philadelphia again. A Navy Yard welder named Tess Kowalski wrote a note on graph paper. I welded a seam on a destroyer, and I did not flinch when the shop air kicked. My brother is on a troop train, and I want the bow of this ship tight like a jar lid. That line is clean and true. I am leaving it unedited because it carries how a shop feels at 2 in the afternoon when the lights hum and the floor shakes. Long Island Air. Mitchell Field scrambled more fighters after a sighting off Jones Beach. A pilot called in a shadow under his wing that matched his turn and then slid away. He thought it was a second fighter until the shape flashed across under a bank. He chased and lost it when thin cloud cut the view. He sounded frustrated on the radio and then steady. He said he would be over Hempstead in 2 minutes and then back to the beach line. I'm handing the microphone to a soldier who just came in from Sandy Hook with a dust mask pulled down under his chin. Corporal Roscoe Dean. He spoke earlier. He wants 30 seconds. This is Roscoe. We just watched a line of rafts come in behind a smokescreen near the point and run into a net that was not there yesterday. The mine casemate boys moved it out last night. They dragged it with a workboat and swore at the knots until their arms went dead. The rafts kept coming and stacked up like a mess in a hallway. Then the cutters put machine gun lines across the water and chopped them to bits. I do not like saying it. I am saying it because my mother thinks we are all asleep at our desks. We are not. We are awake. Thank you, Corporal Dean. He stepped back and rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand. He looks older than this morning by a month. He asked for coffee and then apologized for asking. We poured it anyway. A cable from Washington just cleared to read. The Army has authorized demolition of 2 road bridges on the Cape Cod Canal, one at Sagamore and one at Bourne, if enemy armor threatens to pour across. Those bridges are handsome and strong and part of our summer drives. They will go down if it keeps steel from rolling onto the mainland. This is not theater. This is a ledger with hard math. Maine again. A company of the German infantry tried to take a hill near Scarborough and got stuck under fire from a line of men with M1 rifles and a single water-cooled Browning on a sled mount. The old gun chugged all morning. The private on the trigger, a boy named Armand, says his hands feel wooden and heavy from the grip. He wants his sister to know he is eating when he can, and he will not throw away his coat no matter how wet it gets. Armand, you said that like a promise, and your sister will hear it. Rhode Island Small Town Report, Wickford. The volunteer fire company raised a wooden barrier across the main street with poles and sandbags filled from the beach. A retiree named Mr. Hennessy stands at the post with a shotgun he used to keep foxes off his hens. He was in France a long time ago, and he is back on a corner watching Elaine. That is a circle that would make a poet talk too much. I will leave it as is. He is there. He is steady. A message from the New York City Subway Control Center at West 4th Street. Trains are holding at platforms during alerts to be used as shelters. The station agent at Bedford said a cellist sat on the tile bench and played slow scales to keep a line of children focused. Their parents stared at their shoes and listened. After 5 minutes, the agent said the car doors opened again and the cellist packed up and nodded once at the world. The small things keep the big things from cracking. We got a sharp call from a shop steward at the Bayonne shipyards. He is angry and clear. We need more helmets. The yard handed out 30 and we are 300. I do not want to write letters tomorrow to wives saying a man got a sliver in his scalp because some clerk liked neat shelves. I told him to hold the line. The quartermaster at Fort Monmouth heard that and sent a runner to the depot. If a truck arrives with a tarp of helmets in 1 hour, that is why. Long Island rail yards at Jamaica say a flat car of sandbags and a crate of entrenching tools are moving east as far as the tracks run. Volunteer labor at each station will form bucket lines to lift the loads down. If you are a strong back in Ronkonkoma and you hear a whistle, go down with gloves. This is not glamorous work. It is the work that makes glamour safe to exist on some later day. Boston Medical. Massachusetts General Hospital held a triage drill last month with colored tags and a flow system. They are using it now and it speeds care. A nurse named Miss Eileen O'Shaughnessy says she wanted to cry at the doorway when the first line of stretchers came, and then her hands found the routine. Red for urgent surgery, yellow for wait with care, green for walking wounded, black tag for the chaplain. She said she hates that last tag with a clean, bright hate, and she will not apologize for the word. She should not. Coast Guard Staten Island sends a fragment of hard news. A small ferry used for bait and groceries to the outer islands took a shell through her wheelhouse. The captain died at the helm. The deckhand pulled the handle back with both arms and put the bow toward shore. A produce crate slid, spilled apples, and a girl put her foot on the rolling fruit and kept working the line. Her name is Nina, same Nina who got the shout earlier. She is 19. Her father was the coxswain, with the fuel taste in his mouth. He does not know yet. The watch will tell him when he ties up. I will not dress that line. It stands on its own. Connecticut militia caught a radio beacon transmitter in a lighthouse keeper's shed near Old Saybrook. The box was hidden under netting. It spat a pulse that would help planes find a point in the dark. The keeper swears he did not know. A young man who came around last week with a church basket asked to say a prayer, then asked for a glass of water, then must have tucked the thing under rope. Police have the description. I am telling you because friendly smiles sometimes hang crooked in a storm. Newark Airport has a runway marked with oil lamps set in tins for night landings if the blackout lifts for a medical flight. A doctor from Johns Hopkins is trying to reach Boston with plasma. He has a Lockheed with a fast engine and a pilot who used to fly mail in bad weather. The plan is to hop from field to field, lights up for 2 minutes, then dark. Wardens will shield lamps with hoods. If you live near Elizabeth and see a lamp like a star on the ground, that is not a party. That is a lifeline. Maine fishermen near Cape Porpoise threw nets at men wading in from a beached rubber boat and tripped them into the wash. One fisherman named Toots Gagnon took a hit in the arm and knotted his belt above the wound, then used the wrist of that arm to swing an oar. He is at the school gym, now getting sewed up by Sergeant Hale, the nurse who spoke earlier. She sent a 3-word note. He is fine. Good. I am leaving the van in 3 minutes with a driver and a field phone to run to the Long Branch seawall. There is a report of a light at sea that should not be there. If it is a boat on fire, we will describe it. If it is a decoy meant to draw eyes, I will say that too. Sergeant Howard will keep the carrier healthy and read messages when they stack. He can do it. He reads like a man who does not waste breath. We are in the Jeep. Private Alvarez is driving. He is from Newark's Ironbound and learned to steer in a delivery truck before he wore a helmet. He downshifts without grinding. The road is wet with salt spray. The air smells of wire and damp wool. We pass a church with a hand-lettered sign, basement open. A woman leans on the railing and lifts a thermos to her mouth and then raises it at us like a toast. I lifted my hand back and the Jeep hit a pothole and my teeth touched. That is a detail, not a complaint. At the seawall now. The Atlantic is a slate sheet. There is a glow low on the line where water meets sky. Through field glasses, I can see a hulk with smoke breathing out of her. The glow is flame on the aft deck. A cutter is near and putting a stream on it. A second ship sits dark and still, maybe dead in the water, maybe standing by. I'm speaking into a throat mic while the field phone wire hums. If you hear a hiss, that is the wind pressing the handset. A man beside me, in a pea coat, says the burning ship looks like a small freighter, maybe 5,000 tons. He guesses she took a shell in the engine room because the flame is where the stack meets the deck. He says the talk around the yard was that some of the German subs carry small cannon topside for this nasty work. He spits into the foam and says he will buy the gunner a beer who puts a hole in that exact gun. I do not correct his grammar. It carries right as a bell right now. We are running the line back to the Jeep. The glow is dimming. The cutter's stream sits tight. A second stream starts on the starboard. Men are small shadows on a hot stage. One takes a knee at the rail and does not move. A second man drags him by the belt. The job goes on. The wall wind is needles on cheeks. I will not dress it up. It is cold and it stings and the work keeps moving. Back to the van. The generator note is steady. Sergeant Howard has a new pad open. He nods and points at the board. 3 cards with red pencil, Maine, Long Island, and Boston. I will read in that order. Maine. The German column that tried to slide west found itself bracketed by mortar fire from a National Guard platoon that dug in behind a stone wall lined with sugar maples. The maples are scorched on one side now. A boy named Silas, with a .303 Springfield, took slow shots at a machine gun crew that kept trying to set up in the same window of a white farmhouse. He emptied 2 clips and watched the dust jump off the sill. The gun never got running right. He used his hat as a rest because his elbows burned on the stone. He asked if that was cheating. It is not. It is the reason that hat will have a story for 30 years. Long Island. A coastal artillery officer at Fort Tilden reports an incoming flight broke apart north of the Rockaways after meeting a line of our fighters. One bomber limped south, trailing smoke, and then went into the sea off Breezy Point. No parachutes seen. Lifeboats launched anyway, because hope is a job you do with oars even when your head says the math is bad. The officer was brisk. He said the search grid will stay live for 2 hours, then stand down. He said he told his men to drink water and loosen chin straps before they get headaches. He sounds like a man who knows that small orders carry big weight. Boston. The city ordered the Longfellow Bridge closed to cars until night. Pedestrians may pass with warden's approval. The bridge makes a fine target in daylight and the river draws eyes. A streetcar driver named Mr. Finnegan wrote that he halted on the Cambridge side and said a prayer he learned as a boy, then set the brake and watched two nurses carrying a hamper of bandages cross with their heads down. He wanted to shout something brave and decided quiet was better. He was right. We have a critical engineering decision out of Maine. The State Highway Department and the Guard are dropping gravel trucks into a cut across U.S. Route 1 near Scarborough to make a trench that can be flooded deep enough to stop a panzer. The drivers are unhooking trailers and ramming the noses into the clay, then backing out with help from chains. One truck will not pull free, and the driver, a man named Mac Doobie, looked at the sergeant, looked at the sky, and pulled his lunch pail from the cab. He handed the pail to the next driver and said, "Give this to my wife when you pass the farm." He then crawled under and pulled the cotter pins from the axle so the truck sits on its belly. He knows how to kill a road. The next rain will turn that cut into a brown lake. Philadelphia Harbor just passed word that two barges loaded with scrap steel left at dawn and are now anchored across a narrow channel as a physical gate. Chains run from barge to barge. If a hostile boat tries to nose through, it will grind against old rails and stoves until it stops or rips its own belly. The pilots have the chart marked in grease pencil. The tugboats know where to thread the needle. Queens update. A small group of saboteurs tried to torch a warehouse near the Sunnyside Yards and were surprised by a pair of women welders with hoses and wrenches. The women pinned one man against a wall with a dolly and yanked his arm up until he dropped the lighter. A yard bull took the rest of the fight out of him with a tackle that sounded like two sacks hitting a table. The women's names, Dorothy Van Buren and Helena Smalls. They asked for cigarettes as payment, and the bull gave them his last two and told them to go home. They went back to work instead. Report from Cape Ann. Lobstermen pulled a net that was fouled on something heavy and smooth. They marked the spot with a buoy and called the Coast Guard, then cut the line. The cutter captain says the object looks like a mine by size and shape. The EOD team will tow it to the shallows and blow it if that is what it is. If you are a thrill seeker with a skiff, do not go gape at the buoy. The world will be fine without your witness to that bang. Maine weather is turning ugly. Freezing rain starting on bare branches. Roads will slick. The Guard is dusting intersections with sand from piles set last week. If you own a bucket and live near a corner, bring it. One bucket on a crosswalk might keep a nurse upright. Do it and say nothing and go back inside. I'm taking a call from a teacher in Saugus. She has her class in the basement of the school under the stairs. She says the children are quiet now. She asks for one more storyline. Teacher, say this. Count the windows in your kitchen at home. Picture the curtains. Picture the dish towels. Name 3 things you want to do when the siren stops. Draw them on the back of your hand with your finger. That will fill 5 minutes. 5 minutes makes a shape when the sky growls. A field nurse out of Providence named Miss Alvarez wants me to say loud, if you are donating blood, eat something salty before and drink water after. Do not lie to the nurse about your last fever. We will still like you if you cannot donate today. That is the kind of clarity that makes a hall of cots run smooth. New York Public Library Maine branch opened the basement stacks as shelter. The lions out front sit wet and still. A custodian named Mr. Frank Teller is handing out pencils and paper to kids to draw whatever they want. The rule is, show your drawing to the oldest person in the room and ask for a story from when that person was a kid. Rooms get quiet when old stories walk in. We got a radio report that a German and armored car tried to use a town common as a shortcut near Kennebunk and dropped through the sod into an old septic pit. The crew tried to gun out and only dug deeper. A farmer on a wall laughed once and then stopped and pointed his son to cover the men with a rifle while the guard moved up. He said to me on the line, I'm not proud of the laugh. I told him it is human. He said, all right, and hung up because a sergeant waved him to move. The governor of Maine authorized the use of church bells for coded signals to volunteers. 1 toll, report to the town hall. 2 tolls, report to the school gym. 3 tolls, stay where you are and open your doors to neighbors. If you hear bells and weird runs, Do not panic. It is a human behind a rope doing math while his hands shake. Cut him slack. I am putting a Navy chaplain on for 1 minute because his voice landed in our van like a hand on a shoulder. Lieutenant William Hart, Destroyer Escort Group keyed from a pier phone in Boston. This is Hart. I walked the deck this morning and spoke to men rolling depth charges. One asked if he should write to his mother now or after. I said both. He wrote 2 notes leaning on a crate. He put one in my pocket and asked me to drop it at a post box if I had a chance. I am going to do that now. If you are listening and you have a letter in your kitchen drawer, stamp it, hand it to a warden, and go back to your job. Back to the board. Massachusetts State Guard set up a checkpoint on the Sumner Tunnel entrance and is allowing ambulances, police, and supply trucks. Everyone else gets waved to side streets. If you are in a car at that corner and a teenager in a white helmet tells you to turn, you turn. That kid trained last month and he knows the grid better than you in this hour. Long Island working men dug a line of slit trenches behind the parking lot at Belmont Park with shovels and a borrowed backhoe. A horse trainer brought bandages and iodine because he knows where to buy them in bulk. He set up a station by the rail. He put a bucket of carrots on the bench for the cops' horses. A mounted officer said his mare took 2 and then stood with her ears forward all day like she knew exactly what her job is. Some animals do. Leave it there. Philadelphia, mothers formed a bake line for the hospital train. Not pies. Dense loaves and meat buns that ride well. A man from the corner store handed out paper wrapped in twine. Your city breathes through small trades. Keep the pump running with flour and salt in quiet hands. We are getting a special instruction for homes along the coast. If you have a mirror hanging near a window, take it down and lay it face to the wall. Reflections from a candle can throw a blip far out. You would not think a sliver of light matters from a mile inland. It does. Teach your kids this job and let them do it. Give them credit. A dispatch from the Coast Artillery School near Fort Monroe came over a side channel. They are sending up a team to advise on counter battery for the Maine forts. Manuals are good, but a man who spent his last year rewriting a manual can shave minutes off a drill. Those minutes become distance when you are fighting steel and tide. We have a decision out of Boston that will ache later and is correct now. The harbor master ordered scuttling of 2 obsolete barges to block a narrow approach to the dry docks. Tow lines are set. Charges placed. The signal will come in 5 minutes. The men who built those barges and scraped a living hauling coal in 29 would want this. The cranes will still stand. The docks will still berth ships. A carcass in the throat keeps a shark from passing. Breaking from Maine, a German battery put shells near the outskirts of Saco, walking them toward a crossroads. The fire was blind and wide. A church lost stained glass. A grocery lost a storefront. No list of dead yet. The line said 2 men in gray ran up to set a forward observer post on a porch and were seen by a grandmother on her stoop who threw a bucket of ash at them and screamed in words I will not repeat. The guard came into the lane at a jog and the 2 men vanished into a hedge. The grandmother sat down hard and a neighbor brought her a chair. Nobody told her to go inside. She has earned her seat on the stoop. Newark points again. A row house caught fire from a candle knocked over in the blackout. Neighbors formed a line with pots and pans. The fire smoldered, coughed, and died. The landlord stood in the street with the ledger getting wet and telling himself numbers. That is a head on a wire. He is welcome to it. The kids on that block went back to card games on the steps. I am paging through a pile of quick notes for names I must honor. Radio operator Pete Driscoll from Old Orchard. You were our first eyes on those landing craft. Volunteer nurse Angeline Fournier. Your hands are on 30 wrists. Fisherman Toots Gagnon. You made a mess of a rubber boat and earned your stitches. Captain Dora Collins. Your tug pushed a fire away from a pier full of men. Corporal Danny O'Neill. You kept the bracelet in your pocket and turned your half-track into a wall when the road asked. Jimmy Park. You kicked the door. These names are a spine. We stand straight because of spines. We are past noon now by the watch pinned above the dial. The day is leaning into the hard hours where food and heat run low. If you have a pot, put something in it that fills the house with a smell. Soup, rice, beans. A smell says you are not empty. Feed the old man down the hall first if he will let you. He will argue, and then sit. Let him save face with a joke about your cooking. Let him finish the bowl. The Weather Bureau says the freezing rain band from Vermont is drifting east. By sundown, there will be glaze on branches from Portsmouth up to Portland. Good for us in the sky, bad for men on foot. If you are laying wire, keep your gloves dry or your fingers will lie to you on knots. Ask me how I know. I am looking at my left index nail and it tells the story from last winter when I thought I was clever. We have a hard word out of Long Island. A small group of paratroopers seized a radio station mast near Riverhead and tried to patch a broadcast. The engineer, Mr. Solomon Sol Weiss, cut the main breaker and tripped the lockout before they could key the transmitter. He then walked into the studio with his hands up and told them the tubes needed 5 minutes to warm or they would burn out. He bought time for the police. The police arrived and took the men. Mr. Weiss will get a citation. I want him to get a hot meal first. Boston's mayor sent a short line. I walk the shelters. People are steady. We need more kettles. That is the sort of sentence a boy in school will study later to see how a city kept its voice. Kettles, not speeches. New London. Navy Yard reports a captured codebook from a boarding this morning. No details. A clerk said it in a whisper and then shut the line. If true, our decrypt boys will be humming. Do not ask me for keys or tables. I have none and would not read them here. I am telling you because men in quiet rooms with sharp pencils do work that wins ships time at sea. There is a request I will read from a block warden in Dorchester. Dear folks with chickens, can you keep the roosters quiet before dawn for a few days? The kids are scared, and the crows sound like sirens to them. If you can move a coop to the far side of a yard, do that. If you cannot, put a blanket over the top to keep it dark. Small mercy, large effect. A line from a mother in Kennebunkport named Mrs. Dalton. To my son William, with the guard, your father put your baseball glove on the kitchen table and shook his head and smiled and said you used to oil it too much. He is proud. William, you heard your father. Take care of the glove when you come home. It will smell like his kitchen. Providence line again. A power plant foreman named Mr. Pappas kept a turbine spinning with one bearing hot by pouring a cup of oil every minute while his helper mopped the drip. He is counting and cursing in Greek, and a priest is standing by the switchboard nodding and not telling him to watch his mouth. I support that quiet decision. Keep the turbine alive and apologize to the Lord at Vespers. A word on rumors. No, the president did not flee to Canada. No, the Army did not blow up the Brooklyn Bridge. No, the Navy did not scuttle a battleship in Boston Harbor. Stop repeating those. If your neighbor says a thing that makes your stomach clench, ask him where he heard it and from who. If he says a friend, tell him to sit and play checkers and leave the radio to do the talking. I'm getting a call patch from a woman in Greenpoint who is sitting by a window with blackout paper and a pair of scissors. Her name is Mrs. Helena Nowak. She says she cut the paper wrong the first time and cursed in Polish, and her husband laughed and kissed her forehead, and she tried again and got it right. That is a household doing it exactly right in a small way that matters to the big way. Message from Fort Hancock. The minefield loops triggered once at dawn on a large hull, and the operator marked a spot with a red tack on a map. The skipper of a workboat took 2 men with a float and checked. Nothing. False alarm. The operator did not feel foolish. He felt satisfied that the loops can still twitch. Better a false alarm and a wet boot than a real hull sliding where it should not. Maine again. A timber truck slid on the black ice near a curve and tilted. The driver jumped, rolled, and stood. He waved his arms at a squad coming up the road, and they ducked behind a stone wall before the logs slid free. The driver then pulled a chain from the bed, hitched the axle to a pine, and winched one log at a time until the road could be walked. He is a big man named Earl, with a scar on his temple. He said, "I like a straight job," and then asked for a cigarette and took one pull and put it behind his ear and kept working. The day grinds. That is the honest word. Grind is not poetry. It is what gears do in a box when you miss a tooth. We keep turning anyway. Keep your hands busy with useful loops, bandage rolls, sandwiches, notes, lists. calls. The line from your kitchen table to your neighbor is a wire as real as the copper in our switchboard. Keep traffic clear and honest. I'm going to take 10 minutes to help move fuel cans and stretch my back. Sergeant Howard will read names and short directives. When I come back, we will check on the Sagamore and Bourne Bridge orders, the Providence Tank Farm, the Riverhead Mast Incident aftermath, and any movement on the Ambrose Channel. Stay on this frequency. If you lose me, sweep 2 kilocycles down and you will hear the carrier again. Back in the chair, the van smells like hot dust and coffee that lost its nerve. The board shows new pins on Maine and Long Island. First, the Cape Cod Canal. Scouts report German armor probing toward the bridges slowed by felled trees and a jackknife truck placed on purpose. Engineers set charges. The order to fire sits with a colonel who looks like a man holding the edge of a plate at a wake. He will press when he must, and then write a letter for each family. I can hear the way his voice paused. These are hard calls in a line of hard calls. Providence Tank Farm update. The main fire is still boxed. A second tank vented a burnoff and the flame looks tall but controlled, a torch on a throat. Firefighters rotate every 15 minutes. A canteen truck parked behind a wall hands out tin cups. A boy from the neighborhood rinsed cups in a bucket and stacked them upside down on a crate to keep dust out. He is 8 by the sound of him. He is proud. He should be. Riverhead, radio mast aftermath. The engineer, Saul Weiss, is eating a sandwich in the station kitchen with a cop watching the door. He says the transmitter tubes are fine because he lied about the warm-up time. He says lying is not his trade, but he will bend one when men with guns bang on glass. He asks for a message to his wife that he is safe, and he pinched a cut on his knuckle with tape. Mrs. Weiss, he is fine. He will come home with a story that sounds made up and is not. Ambrose Channel. The destroyers rode a sonar contact north. 2 patterns dropped, oil and bubbles. Nothing on the surface but an oiled seagull that sat on the wave like a dirty hanky. The cutter took the bird aboard and wrapped it in an old sweater. A sailor with freckles carried it into the galley. He will get teased for that later and he will shrug. The ocean is not only steel and math. Sometimes it is a single bird that looks at you like you are a fool and you help it anyway. Mainline. The German beachhead near Old Orchard is shrinking under pressure from 3 sides. Our boys cut their supply line with a blown bridge and a pickup truck, parked sideways under wires. The enemy is digging in around a summer inn with white columns. The innkeeper left a note on the door that said, "Rooms free to anyone with a bandage," before he left. The note is still there under tape. The tape is frosted. Men are fighting in yards where kids skipped rope last week. That hurts to say. It is accurate, and I will not sand it down. Long Island. A freight train loaded with gravel and scrap is being inched onto a viaduct at a nightfall to act as a movable barrier. Engineers call it a rolling plug. If word comes to clear the span for an ambulance, the locomotive will pull forward 2 car lengths. If an armored car tries to ram, it will get a face full of rust and rock. The engineer is a woman named Josephine "Joe" Rivera. She learned the throttle from her father. She says the whistle sounds wrong in this weather. She will use it anyway when she must. Boston Children's Hospital. The generator coughed, and a mechanic named Mr. Patel hit the side with a wrench in the way you hit a soda machine when it eats your nickel and the thing caught again. He laughed, and then apologized for the laugh, and then tuned the carburetor with a fingernail file because the proper tool was in a drawer on the other side of the building. Good mechanics make tools out of whatever is in the pocket. If you doubt it, watch a good seamstress with a candle and a pin. Same skill. We have a request to restate the safe water trick. If you live in a house with a hot water tank, the water in that tank is clean if your pipes are intact. Turn off the main, let the water settle. Open the tank drain into a clean pot. If the tank sits in a basement with a fuel smell, do not do this. Use bottled or boiled water only. Do not guess. If in doubt, bring a cup to the nearest shelter and ask the nurse to smell it. Noses are better than hope. A funeral home in South Boston opened its viewing room as a quiet space for mothers with babies. The director, Mr. Doyle, put chairs in a circle and set a pot of tea on a low table. He moved photographs to a back room. He said the dead can wait their hour. The living need the chairs now. He said that with no drama, just a clockmaker's tone. The kind that keeps time when the hands shiver. The ironworks in Quincy is casting trench plates from scrap. The plates will cover shell bites in roads so ambulances do not snap axles. The foreman called to say he will need coal by morning. The city fuel office took the call and moved his slip to the top. If we get coal to that plant, we get plates to a road, and a road becomes a line you can trust in the dark. This is the equation of a day like today. Maine. A small chapel near Buxton took in 20 kids, and a pastor set them to counting raindrops on the window as a game. He told the smallest ones to pick a number and cheer if the count lands on it when the clock hits the top of the hour. The kids bought in. Parents breathed easier for a minute. 1 minute is a world when the sky rattles. We just got permission to read the first confirmed list of enemy prisoners taken on Long Island. 15 men captured near Manorville are alive and under guard. 1 officer, 4 non-coms, 10 privates. They carried maps with trace lines toward river crossings. They carried candy in pockets. They carried photographs of people we will never know. They are not giants. They are men. Our job is to stop their job. We are doing it. The Office of Civilian Defense asked me to say once more, if you find an unexploded shell or a lump of metal with fins in your yard, do not touch it. Do not poke it with a stick. Do not kick it into the street, tie a rag on a fence, and send a runner to the nearest post. The bomb squad will come. They will use sandbags and ropes. They will curse softly and do it right. Let them. Evening is sliding in. The light goes flat and then dark. This is when nerves fray. This is when a back porch creak sounds like a boot. Slow down your thinking. Check the latch. Check the candle. Sit. Breathe even. Count to 20 the way the old men taught you in barber chairs. Then go on with the job in front of you. You do not have to fix the whole war tonight. You have to keep your block calm. That is enough. We will keep this transmitter hot through the night if fuel holds and tubes glow. I will read names when I can and orders when they land. The map on the wall has thumbtacks at Scarborough, Saco, Old Orchard, Riverhead, Rockaway, Fort Tilden, Fort Hancock, Sandy Hook, Providence, Boston, Quincy, Bridgeport, Newark, Jersey City, and the Ambrose Channel. The lines between them are real, even if they are pencil. Our crews drive those lines and tie knots in them. This is Private First Class Michael Rourke, Signal Corps, Fort Monmouth, speaking on 7.400 megahertz, with a BC 610 transmitter warmed and steady. If you are a small station with a wire on my feed, keep the patch live. If you are a man on a back step with a cigarette, grind it out and go write your phone tree for the block. If you are a nurse with a sore back, take the stool when someone offers it. If you are a kid with a pocket full of marbles, give one to the scared kid sitting next to you. We turn a day like this by inches, not yards. I will be here on the hour with the next run of reports. The line holds. You hold. We hold.